There's expectations, family, society, class, race, sex, or religions. It's time to break free from the isms that make us feel like we're in prison. I'm ready to be unleashed as fuck. I'm ready to be unleashed as fuck. Tired of the madness, done with the sadness. Gonna break free and be unleashed.
Woo!
Could you hear the song?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I have now suddenly I can't hear anything. Oh, here we are.
Okay.
Great, what a day. Hey, this is Deidre Beecham and Jenny Battig. Holy cow. We are here with Unleashed AF podcast. So sorry, I had a little technical difficulty there at the beginning. But welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. Every single week, we are here to talk about all the leashes that you potentially have in your mind, in your life, and how you can overcome them. And we talk about that being, your leash, what is keeping you stuck in place. Whoa.
Woo!
Got it up this week. Look, Look at
Nice.
that. And I am Deidre Beecham with Bold Breakthroughs, and I think I'm actually changing that to deidrebeecham.com. Wow. Okay. And I help women in my life that come into my life to expand their minds and get visible. And I think the number one way that you get visible is you get visible to yourself. And I'm here with my co-host. And Jenny, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
So I am Jenny Battig, the inner space engineer. I have a good bit of experience in my career doing human factors engineering, and then took the leap to become a hypnotherapist for the last decade or so. And so I really enjoy now kind of applying both sides of that experience and knowledge base to help people figure out solutions to their problems. And some of those problems are internal. So I'm excited that we have this podcast platform now to share what we both do, which, we come from different backgrounds, but we have very similar aligned interests when it comes to how we help people. So I just love that we're doing this pod now for people to kind of raise awareness and help people get connected to the types of things that can be helpful for them.
Awesome. Yeah. And we focus primarily on women because, we're women. But we have very distinct women in general have very distinct issues that most men don't have, but most women do. So it just behooved us to start this. But we're doing things a little bit different today. We do not have a guest, and something a little exciting happened yesterday. Well, at least we think it's very exciting. I think most of America hopefully thinks it's exciting. But so Jenny, why don't you go ahead and share what happened yesterday?
Yeah. So yesterday was a historic day. It was 5:30, which when I say that, it makes me think of 420. And I'm like, oh, that's an exciting day for people too, for a whole different reason. Maybe someday we'll celebrate 5:30 a similar way. But yesterday, 5:30 is when they announced the verdict that came in. And it was 34 counts of felony charges, all of which Donald Trump, the former president, was found guilty of. And this is part of his hush money trial with Stormy Daniels. So it's really kind of the first time he's truly been held accountable for some of these things that he's managed to slither through over the years. And I think there's probably there's multiple reasons I think people are kind of happy that this turned out this way. Some of it is just confidence in the justice system to be able to actually come through and have a verdict, of guilty, although it seems so obvious to most people that that's what the case is, but sometimes you can still sneak through it in the justice system. And I think obviously there's some people that don't like him, but either way, it's a kind of a big deal. So let us know what your reaction was when you heard about it yesterday, Deidre.
Me? Oh my gosh. I was sitting in my office. I did not have it on. and I was working on my workshop, and suddenly I got a message. I think, let me say it's right here. I think she said, he's guilty. And so I immediately turned it on and started watching a little bit from MSNBC. But yeah, it was, there was a sense of relief. There was definitely a feeling of finally, like, Jiminy Cricket. I mean, those of us that there were so many things that got uncovered with his presidency, right? I mean, so many things. I mean, I know I was shocked. I truly thought he would be impeached and be kicked out of the office because of all the things that he did. And the
Yep.
number one thing it told me was that all of the things that we had been taught in school about checks and balances were BS.
Yep.
It was just a big old lie. And that was shocking and disconcerting. Yeah, that it really shook my confidence in our entire system. It really did. It shook my
Yeah.
confidence.
Justice system and
So-
government overall, right?
So yeah, absolutely. So the relief, it was like, finally something is happening. I still don't believe he'll go to jail. I hope he does, but
Right.
I don't think that's going to happen because he seems to be getting away with everything. So it was nice, just this kind of sense of relief that finally something stuck. Finally. And it's just absolutely insane.
Yeah. And I know, of course, as he always does, he'll appeal this. And so it'll get drawn out for, I think I heard the other day, it could go on for well over a year in terms of all the appeals that could happen. But until that whole process is complete, at a minimum, he is considered a convicted felon and therefore cannot vote in the upcoming presidential election.
Right. Because in Florida, if you're a convicted felon, because that's where he lives now after he left New York, he came down to Florida and is a resident. And in Florida, you are not allowed to vote if you're a convicted felon. So how in the world is this convicted felon still allowed to run for presidency?
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing.
He can't vote, but he can be our president.
Right. That's the one thing that has come up occasionally over the course of even since he was elected the first time, but nothing's ever been done about it, I guess. But I think now it's even more critical that we really start to look at patching those holes that he's revealing in the law. I mean, why would there not be a law that the president can't be a convicted felon? Like,
well, do you think, I mean, really, as a founding father of the government, would you think, oh my gosh, someday there might be a convicted felon that would want to run? Let's put a law in there against that. Because seriously, common sense would dictate you wouldn't need that law. But we know from our litigious society that you do need the laws that you wouldn't think you'd need.
Yeah.
Because.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy
And that's
thing.
not a just about him thing. That's not anything personal against him. I can't even imagine, even from the perspective of, like, I've had to hold a job where I had to get a background check. Right. And I know part of what they even look into in your background check is your finances.
Yeah.
Because if you have anything that can be held against you or used to influence you or blackmail you, that can be a problem in getting a background check. So I don't even think the law should be just can't be a convicted felon. If you can't pass the typical government employee background check.
Yeah, you shouldn't be able to be president.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
I
how do
agree.
you get top secret clearance? That's part of, I mean, that's like background check plus. Like, I didn't even get the top secret thing, but I had to go through that background check. And the fact that they don't have to do that to be president is just mind-boggling to me.
Mind-boggling.
So I mean, obviously, if something was done about it right now, it would be painted as a political move and stuff like that, just specifically about him. But that needs to happen. Like,
Yeah,
it's
because I would
ridiculous
feel the
that it's
same way
not
if it
true
was. I would feel the
already.
same way if it was a Democrat. I would feel the same way if it was. I would feel the same way if it was any politician trying
Right.
to get
Man,
into government.
woman, young,
Doesn't matter.
old, race, I don't care where they're
Makes
from, who
no
they
difference.
are. Yep, that should be always true.
Yeah. And I know we talked before the show, we were talking about, well, you actually had written me and said, oh my gosh, we probably need to talk about the narcissist.
Yes,
he
the
is.
narcissist in the room.
Narcissist in the country. And the reason this is important to bring up is because that is such a leash, and he can be such a trigger for so many people. I know that when he first came into thinking about running for president, and he did there were all kinds of triggers that were happening to me. And I'm good now because I've faced a lot of those things in my life, and I'm good. But I know that can be very, very frustrating and difficult. Being triggered. And there's so many different triggers from him, but one of the biggest is the narcissism.
Yep.
And
I think even rolled up into that, you can include aspects of the patriarchy. The patriarchal system feeds into that. White privilege feeds into that. In this case, there's, these things are not, the leashes are not always just individual and unique. Yeah, this is like a braided leash.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah, he is a braided leash,
braided together. But yeah, narcissism is the one that's like glaring, or maybe the umbrella term that incorporates so much of it.
So one of the things, I know that you looked up some of the things that are classic symptoms of narcissism. And so this is, and of course, he's, as far as we know, he has not been actually diagnosed. This is just our and many, many other people's
right
educated guess that is what he has. But go ahead and read those off if you don't mind.
And it's hard to get diagnosed when you never actually go to someone that would be a diagnoser of such a thing. Yeah. So there's that.
Absolutely.
I have heard from actually many psychologists and psychiatrists that have been interviewed regarding his behaviors and his statements and things like that have wholeheartedly said. Oh, yeah. And I think most of his niece, I can't think of her first name now, but his niece that wrote the book about him, quite openly talked about how his narcissistic tendencies have been his whole life, not just since the presidency thing.
Right.
But yeah, so the narcissist, when I looked up narcissist personality disorder, the first thing on there was an exaggerated sense of self-importance. So,
well, that's a spectrum.
Which, they kind of defined as having a feeling of superiority without any proof necessarily of that superiority. So thinking yourself as important simply because you think of yourself as important and you need to think that way.
Right.
The second one that they listed was that they believe that they are special and unique. Not just, anybody can say, oh, well, I'm unique. Everybody's unique. But to the point of having to surround themselves with the people that they feel like, oh, I only surround myself with the best people, translation, people that will do or say what I want them to, that continue to feed my feeling of superiority and being special. So let's see, check. Requiring excessive admiration, like idolization. Like they need to be seen as an idol for the people around them. And
we know that's true.
Yeah. Have to constantly get that kind of positive feedback and admiration. So, holding press conferences all the time and having people that are going to clap for you or whatever. Check.
My favorite was when he went to the baseball field. Was it Wrigley? He was at the baseball field and he was or football field. I can't remember now. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
And
he's been a lot of places.
but he was standing back as if all the people on the field were cheering for him, and they were just there for a game. Had
Oh, I
nothing
did
to do-
see that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like he's off kind of in the sidelines somewhere, but acting as if everyone who's cheering for the game is actually cheering for him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Which,
one.
and then of course you can have the cameras adjusted so that it appears as he's standing there.
Editing is magic. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, what else you got for us?
Then we've got sense of entitlement, meaning the rules don't apply to them.
Well,
the
that was
same way they
obvious
do normal
after he lost the election. That was very obvious. The rules do not apply to him,
Right.
because he was like, no, I won that.
Yeah.
No,
Well, and
you lost.
anytime he's ever been part of the justice system, he doesn't feel it's been equal or balanced. One of the first things out of his mouth today, when he came out and started his rant of a press conference, which was really just talking more and more about what he wished he could have said on the stand, but they wouldn't put him on the stand. He was talking about how it was a corrupt judge. It was like you couldn't find a more corrupt judge than this guy who did his case, and it was a scam of a trial. Like the first things out of his mouth were about how unfair the system was to him. And he's taught one of the things that a lot of his followers really kind of glamp onto, I think, is him talking about this, there's this two-tier justice system, but he makes it sound like, the Democrats have one system and Republicans have another. But it's the haves and the have-not. Like he's not wrong about it being tier.
It is. It absolutely is tiered.
Power and money.
Who has money and who doesn't? That's the tiers.
And it's still it's a whole different psychological question to me to try to understand how people that are in that category of the have-not. So yeah, it's not a fair justice system for them. See that they're in the same tier as him. Like, I don't understand how they feel like he represents them because he's everything opposite. That's a psychological profile I have not yet quite figured out, but somehow he's connected with them and they're along for the ride. Some, not all. Thank God. Another clear symptom is lack of empathy. So, not understanding when somebody else is going through something tough, like you insert your own thing that sounds like it's tougher, which the first thing that pops into my mind when I think about how he's demonstrated that was when he was like tossing the paper towel rolls out to the people in Puerto Rico after the hurricane.
People
and trying to make it like this great,
didn't have food, didn't have electricity, and he's throwing paper towels. And I'm like, look at how awesome I am. Look at
as
what
like
I'm
a
doing.
photo op, basically, of look what I'm doing for these people. I'm tossing them paper towels, and when they're, drowning from a hurricane, whatever. Having a sense of being envious of others, and feeling like others should also be envious of them. So if he doesn't really show the first part that much, I don't know that he's envious of a lot of other people. He definitely feels like others should envy him.
Well, yes, but I think that comes in his statements always of things are being unfair. That person's getting better treatment than me. I should get better treatment. So I think that does come out in that where he's accusing other people of what he wants.
Right. Okay. That's true.
Envy thing. Yeah.
He wouldn't come right out and say he was jealous of someone.
Oh, no. Instead, he would attack. He would attack the thing that he's envious of, which is Joe Biden.
Right.
Which is crazy. And it used to be Obama. But
Hillary was the other one that he would attack.
Hillary. Yeah.
And so many things. I mean, well, we'll get to this when we're done. There's 3 more things here.
Yeah, go ahead. Next one.
Arrogance would be the next one, Deidre. And
that one's pretty obvious. That one's pretty obvious because I can't think of too many people that are more arrogant than he is.
Correct. He's got the arrogance thing.
Well, and here's the most arrogant statement that I think I may have ever heard, which is when he came out and said, I could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and then I would still be elected.
Yep.
And that's unbelievable arrogance. I
Yep.
could shoot somebody and no one would care.
Yep. And the funny
Yeah.
thing is, you mentioned that was the statement that caused me to lose a friend back when he was running in 2016.
No kidding.
Because I knew she was conservative, but socially liberal, actually.
Mhm.
But she kept talking about how she was supporting Trump and stuff like this. And I'm like, I'm not sure how you could do that when he out of his own mouth, his own words, he's talking about how he could manipulate the Republican Party. Like, why are you following along with this guy? And I mentioned that example, and she was like, he didn't say that. I'm like, yeah, he did.
My favorite is he didn't say that or he didn't mean that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. All right. What else we got here?
Then we got being preoccupied with the appearance of success and
Well,
or
that's
the
obvious.
perfect mate or say trophy wife.
Ding, check, check. Check, check, check,
Yep.
check.
Check. And then taking advantage of others, using other people to your own advantage and not really doing anything, no quid pro quo. It's just, oh, thanks, I needed that. I'm done with you now. Which he's done to most of the Republican government, actually.
Yep.
Most of Congress that has supported him in some way at some point. And if they're not on his side right in this moment, they're dead to him.
Absolutely. And there's going to be retribution.
Right. If they don't hop back in line.
Yep.
So, and that's just talking about him in terms of his personality, his personal life, his professional life, his government life. But then you also look at, now this wasn't a suit that was brought by Stormy Daniels. Mm-hmm. She was certainly the reason for it, but this was brought as a state prosecutor case. So she wasn't the one like suing him or, this was a criminal case.
Yes.
She was a witness in the case. And I actually watched a documentary about her that gave me, because I've never really looked into this that much before. I honestly didn't care that much. Didn't surprise me at all to hear that he had done it. Not that I, felt like if I was on a jury, would I find him guilty before hearing anything? No, I would hear both sides, but not surprised at all. So I never really looked into it anymore. And, there's a whole nother perspective with her kind of being the potential victim here, even though he's the one that has now been found guilty of all these counts. She was the one that got dragged into this. She didn't ask to be part of this whole mess to begin with. I mean, it was really interesting to hear, and I'm sure other people have heard it previously. I just never had paid attention. It wasn't like she was trying to seek the spotlight. She was just working a job that her film company was like sponsoring a hole at a golf tournament or whatever. And she was one of the people there at that golf tournament. That was how she met him. It wasn't like she sought him out saying, oh, he's got money. Let me see if I can extort him. She at one point, the thing that really struck me in the whole documentary was that she has said, I've never called this rape. I didn't go into that hotel room planning to have sex with him, but I also didn't say no. So she's been completely upfront about that, but also said, and part of why I didn't say no is because my upbringing in the South taught me to respect my elders and respect men and be the good girl, be the nice girl.
And here's what's so interesting about that is that's taught across the country. I'm sure it's taught in other countries as well. I mean, I certainly was raised that way. Mm-hmm. I was raised that, you don't say something unless it's encouraging to another person. You respect your elders. It doesn't matter if you don't want to hug that person. You hug them because I told you to, because you're going to obey. And there's a lot of those messages that go on with women, and so it's really easy for narcissists to kind of get a hold. And because of those messages, also sometimes if we haven't done our own inner healing and gotten away from that and built up a strength and a structure that we can fight that, then sometimes people can become what I have affectionately recently learned. They become flying monkeys. So a flying monkey is the person that defends the narcissist, defends this person's title. So you could look at red hats as flying monkeys, but the flying monkey keeps the status quo. They understand the status quo. They don't want the backlash from the narcissist, and they are sitting there being the flying monkey, making sure that the narcissist stays happy. And so that's a very interesting thing too, and can really, really make it difficult for people who have a narcissist in their life to make sense of it all, because of those messages that we've gotten about how you're supposed to respect your elders and be kind and not pay attention to what you're actually thinking and feeling, but instead think about everybody else around you. And then if you have a flying monkey telling you that this person is a good person too, it can be very, very confusing. And women can grow up, if you have this in your life, and it's not exclusive to women, of course. There are female narcissists and men that are caught in the web as well. I mean, obviously that happens. It is not exclusive to men towards women.
Right.
At all.
Yeah, that was actually something the article that I read mentioned too. There are certainly women who are narcissists. It's a somewhat higher population of men, but there are also women who are narcissistic as well. It's just more likely for men than women, but yeah.
And what's crazy is it can be very, if you don't have really good boundaries, if you don't know yourself well, right, because they come across very charismatic, a narcissist can come across very charismatic, and giving and caring about you. And then there's the switch, where it's all about controlling you and controlling their environment, which is what all that love bombing was all about. Mm-hmm. And I know I have a personal history with a narcissist, and just to share about how insidious this can be, I'm going to go ahead and share this little letter that I had shared with you before. Sure. So I got a message from somebody in my family who wanted me to do some work for them, and I had worked gotten some work for them in the past. And when I stopped getting paid, I told him on every once in a while, if he wanted to send me something simple to do on the website, I would take care of him, because he has a nonprofit, and just trying to be a good person. And over time, I just got busier and busier. And one day he sent me this big, long thing to do. It wasn't something quick to do. It was this big, long thing. And it had been over a year. I'd been asking him, I really want to get a step away from this, find somebody. So wrote me asking me to do this really long, complicated thing. And I said, I'm not able to do this at this time, as I'm traveling and without a computer. Please find another individual to take care of this. I would suggest finding someone on Fiverr or Upworks. I've hired from both locations for some of my own needs. WordPress help should not be difficult to find. Otherwise, we'll need to wait until the week of whatever. If you'd like to wait till then, blah, blah. I'm no longer available for volunteer work or an hourly rate. I'll be charging for any of my labor at a project rate. Let me know if you'd like to proceed. Otherwise, I sincerely wish you the best of luck finding someone to handle your ongoing WordPress needs. Kindly, Deidre. Right? It's firm. It's got boundaries. It's very kind. I offer suggestions on how this person get it fixed. But a narcissist wants to control you and flip the switch. So here's the response. Your email was both hurtful and disappointing. I also believe your closing kindly was not sincere given the contents of what you wrote. Given your intelligence and sensitivity, I strongly doubt any of what you have just written is of any surprise to you. Right. So, and narcissists are really good at that. It took
Yep.
something where I just set a boundary. I said, I can't do this anymore. I offered solutions. Here's how you can fix this. And I was a kind email. And then the response was, oh, what do you mean you're not going to do this for me? That's not nice. I mean,
Mhm.
that's basically what that email says. And
Right.
and it really caused this whole thing in me where it was wonderful. I'm grateful that it happened. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm so grateful that it happened, and I'm grateful to him because I saw very clearly for the first time what he had been doing all these years, and I had not put my foot down. And every time I'd put my foot down before, I had always backed off. And this time, because I was so firm, it upset him, and he countered
Yep.
as such.
Mhm.
And it was beautiful because when I received it, I thought, no, I didn't do anything wrong. I was kind.
Yeah.
I'm not being nice anymore because he wants me to be the nice girl and the good girl. And it's okay for me to be the villain in his eyes. I am really okay with that.
Mhm.
And you are. Anytime you go against a narcissist, you are the villain. They will
Right.
paint you as the villain. They feel that you are the villain. And I'm sure, I'm making a guess based on all of the knowledge that I have from doing research about narcissists. I'm sure he feels that I'm angry with him. I'm not. I'm not angry at all. I don't want to talk to him
Mhm.
if you're around him. but
But
I'm
that's just a
good.
boundary thing. That's
It is a
understanding.
boundary.
Yep.
And boundaries are very difficult for narcissists. Because they think that they have every right to jump over whatever boundary you have. And if you aren't giving to them, then you are horrible, which is what Trump says all the time when people don't agree with him. He
Anytime
immediately
somebody
goes on
goes
the
against
attack.
him.
He
Yep.
immediately goes on the attack. You're a horrible person.
Yep.
And so it's just
Even when it's his own, I mean, he hasn't done that with his family per se specifically yet, but almost everybody that he's had in his administration who has done anything to step out of line with anything that he said needs to be a yes thing to him, he has immediately trashed and said that they're horrible. Well, you're the one that hired them. Like, you said they were the greatest thing at the time, but just because they're no longer agreeing with you, now they're horrible. So that's another,
right.
I'm not sure how that really fits into those 9 signs or symptoms that I was reading about, but if it doesn't fit in there, it needs to be symptom number 10, because yeah, constantly blaming other people, never being able to take, like, not credit obviously, but blame, or responsibility is really the thing.
They're never responsible. Just like Trump is
Right.
never responsible. It's always
Yeah.
somebody else's fault. It's always a corrupt system. It's corrupt people. It's I'm not being treated fairly. Wah, wah, wah.
And the one thing that I don't know if this really comes out in those 9 symptoms I read before either, but I don't know if it's just true about him or if it's a typical narcissistic trait as well. But sometimes if you are able to pay attention and be kind of independent from their swaying or influence, they have a tell, right? Anything that they start to blame others for is really something that either they would do themselves or they have done themselves, or this is what I would do if I was in your situation. So that must be what you mean by that. So when
Yeah.
he said, I don't even think that you're, the way you signed off on that email or whatever,
Oh
I
yeah,
don't even think that's
you weren't
sincere.
kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
You
he
weren't-
wouldn't have been.
You didn't mean being kind. And I've meant every word I said. I was
Mhm.
very careful, which is very interesting because that's a symptom of somebody who has been under a narcissist, is we are very careful about our
Mhm.
words.
Yeah, you develop that, right? It's part
Yeah.
of it's how
You
you
do
survive.
develop it. And one of the things that I had to do, and this is a great tip for you if you've been under the thumb of a narcissist, is one of the things that I had to do is pull away from that and look at myself without that I, right?
Mhm.
Just my I. What do I think about who I am? What do I believe about myself? And then having the strength to put a boundary in place. And a boundary is different than telling somebody what to do, right? Some
Right.
people think, well, the boundary is and here's the trap I got stuck in. The trap I got stuck in is I just want him to understand I'm not that person. Right. So I was always trying to explain, no, that's not what I meant. That's not this. And realizing that the boundary I was putting in place was simply a request. And that's not a boundary. A boundary isn't requesting somebody to be a certain way.
Mhm.
A boundary is, hey, I've observed this. And if you do this again, this will be my reaction. It's a boundary.
Mhm.
This is my boundary. So if you are going to treat me this way, I am going to remove myself. If you're going to treat me this way, I am going to not talk to you.
Right.
That's going to be my reaction, because if you can't take responsibility for your behavior, because that's not love. As much as this person says that they love me, as much as a narcissist says they love you, if they don't make changes, if you say that you're upset about something and they don't listen to you to self-reflect and go, okay, what part have I played in this? How, as somebody who loves this person, what responsibility do I have? How do I change this thing? Or you at least talk about it. The narcissist flips that on its head and doesn't want to take any responsibility. And so if you say something like I did, here's my boundary, and then now he's the victim.
Mhm.
He's completely turned around. Oh my gosh, you're not going to do this for me. You're horrible. And
Right.
a narcissist will do that. And so it's really important. And this took me a long time to get this. It's really, I mean, I'm in my 50s and I just got this. I mean, my gosh, is that you have to have the strength to stand up for yourself.
Yep.
And you know what? And to be, and I love this, and I have got to look this lady's name up, because she said, I'm okay, I'm perfectly fine being the enemy or being the bad person in your story. See, and we grow up thinking we can't possibly be the bad person in somebody's story. Yes, you can. It's okay.
Yeah.
Because it's more important that you're the good person in your own story.
Right.
That's super important.
Yeah. And I think part of what tends to take longer for people to realize that sometimes is just not even being aware of the position that you're in the first place, especially if you've had the kind of grooming like we were talking about before. Not that not that the grooming for a lot of young girls is about dealing with narcissists necessarily, but when you're groomed to be a
Well, it's
pleaser.
groomed to be, yeah, it's groomed so that, I apologize for interrupting, but it's being groomed to be controlled.
Yeah. And complacent. And yeah, just being a follower, not a leader, not going out on your own, being independent. It's succumb to whatever that presence is, whether it's family or whatever, just someone in a position of power, like a boss or the authorities or something like that. And some of that is not exclusive to women. I mean, I think there's probably similar issues with young Black men that are told how to deal with when the police
Oh,
pull you over,
absolutely.
like don't
Which is
even.
actually, and I apologize that I didn't say this earlier, because we were talking about the justice system earlier, and we were talking about the haves and the have-nots, rich and poor. It's also white and black.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it is absolutely also white and black.
Yep. Yeah, well, and I think realistically, there's definitely a racial divide. Um, but the way I think it does break down even more specifically or more clearly is, like I said, the haves and the have-nots. Because there can be, I mean, obviously there's quite successful Black people that have avoided having any kind of, bad things
That's
come upon
true.
them. And there's been white
Clarence
people that have been
Thomas.
stuck in prison for years. So, sorry, what?
Clarence Thomas.
Yes. Good example. Right. He's in that tier of nothing's happening to him so far, even though he's stepped out of line quite obviously with some of the things he's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think there's probably a variety of things that people are feeling or dealing with or how they're reacting to this news. So let's talk a little more about how people move forward from this. For some people, they're ecstatic and like ready to have a party in the street. So we don't really need to help them with a coping situation, but
yeah, but there's also the battle's not over. I mean, this is
Right.
just, it's one battle that has been won against somebody who truly wants to destroy our democracy and change
his
the
own
power
gain.
structure. It really makes, I'm sorry?
For his own gain.
Yes, for his own gain, his party's gain, and his friends' gain, and all of his rich people gain.
Gosh, I don't even think for his party's gain. If he was in a different party, he would do, like if the Republican Party fell apart, he would still be doing it.
Yeah,
So-
probably. But he needs an audience. Yeah. So as long as he has an
he needs an audience for sure.
Yeah. But
Well, and I part of what I'm thinking of is even I don't know how many people we would actually have watching our podcast that might feel this way, but people who maybe have really believed him this whole time and now maybe are going, whoa, he did actually lie about this stuff. Or like they're starting to see the light, so they're starting to maybe have that realization kind of that you were talking about, like, holy crap, we're dealing with a narcissist here. Like this is, I can't believe I was duped by this guy. I mean, there's a whole, process really, I think, of going through that is probably not too dissimilar from the grieving process, because for people that have had such a huge like attachment to every word and every fucking Bible he sold and the damn golden sneakers and all this other shit, they were just bought in hook, line, and sinker. If something like this, now many of them won't be changed by this at all, but once they get to something that's bad enough that it changes their impression of him, I think part of the process is recognizing, holy crap, I believed this. Like, how did I end up believing all this? Now it becomes so obvious to me once the veil is broken. Like I think there's going to be a process for people that are dealing with that. I've seen some either current or former Republicans, but people that say, I voted for him twice, but I will not vote for him again. Not just since the verdict, but I've been seeing more of that lately on just different videos that have popped up on social media. People, for whatever reason, are finally kind of seeing through the veil. And I think there's probably anger, which is part of the grief process. There's confusion. There's, like I said, probably some guilt, self-guilt. Like, how did I let myself get wrapped up in this? Like, I think it's probably very similar to that, where they have to kind of almost find a new kind of feeling lost. Like, I thought I was really onto something solid and now it just dropped out from under me.
Yeah. And I think one of the most important things is to go into some self-reflection and understand who it is that you are. Because I don't think it's too unlike when I recognized what was happening to me and the manipulation that was happening to me and my family. And yeah, there is a, I can tell you from personal experience, there's a shock and awe that I allowed myself to be manipulated, that I allowed myself for so long to twist myself into knots to make everything work between us, for me to, everybody around me is telling me about how wonderful he is. And he always told me about how wonderful he is. And you know, he has this nonprofit, and I love the nonprofit. I think it's an amazing nonprofit. And I think it is sad that he lets his ego get in the way of that truly helping the number of people that it truly could help, because he's so interested in being in control. So going back to the feeling, you know, there's a sense of loss, because I enjoyed being a part of that nonprofit. I enjoyed helping with that. And so there is a sense of loss in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure the same thing with if you're leaving the Trump community, you know, there's a sense of loss of that community. There's a sense of, you know, where do I fit now? And it's so important to remember who you are, and to get into some cognitive behavioral techniques, and just getting out in the sun, and you know, appreciating who you are, and just getting back in touch with who you are. But I know for myself, it was like, wow, this is sad. You know, lost a family member.
Mm-hmm.
And then also recognizing the most important thing for me was recognizing that it doesn't matter what this person says. What matters is what I think, and my sense of self, and being kind to those around me. And as long as I am being true to me, I'm okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know how much that helps the person who's come to that realization, but that definitely was what happened to me. Just utter shock and disappointment in myself, and I had to let that go and recognize that it's okay, because you're okay. And it's okay to be the bad guy. I don't have to explain myself. Just let it go. Just let it go.
Yeah. And I guess some encouragement I would give to people who are probably more likely to watch our podcast. When you have someone like that around you, and they're going through that, or might be like, maybe they haven't completely gone through it or had the realization yet, but the eggshell is cracked now. So they're starting to go through that process. Making fun of them or belittling them would not help them through that process, because what they need really is to have some sense of reassurance that, like you said, you go through and you start to go, God, how did I let this happen? Like, what's wrong with me that I let this happen, or let this person take advantage of me? And so if you were going through that process and had social media and everybody talking about how stupid you were for doing it, that would be rough.
Thought that for so long. Yeah, it wouldn't help.
Yeah. So as much as we kind of feel like, yes, it's our time to laugh and dance in the rain about this, because the other side has a tendency to be pretty loud about things at times in defending him and stuff like that. I think we do have to be a little careful about how hard we poke at people.
And, well, don't you think that's the thing, though, is that there has been over time just a lack of just really thinking of each other as humans. Right?
Yeah.
There's so much divide. And that's what a lot of what this podcast is about, is not having that divide anymore. Really thinking of each other as human beings. We're just human beings trying to get through this. And they're amazing. It's an amazing life if you just change your mindset, which it can truly, truly change your life if you just change your mindset. And we shouldn't be, in my opinion, beating people up because they don't have our opinion right now. Just a bunch of hurt people trying to figure out how to make it.
Yeah.
Some people make it hard.
Right. And things that I tell people quite often is that hurt people hurt people.
Oh, God, yeah.
And so if you try to continue to hurt someone that's already hurting, they're only going to lash out even more, or it's going to take them even longer to overcome that pain so that they stop hurting other people. So it's, sometimes I think I do love the name that we came up with for the podcast, Unleashed AF. Like, I think it's catchy and it gets people's attention. And in a lot of ways, that's what we want to do is help people feel unleashed. But I think it can also be misinterpreted. And I don't want it to seem like we're about being just, completely off the hook and like go everywhere and be aggressive or do,
so that's unhinged, not unleashed.
Right. Well, but different people have different definitions, right?
No,
So
that's true.
just clarifying, like we're not talking about being a dog that even though we're using that leash concept, we're saying we're at the dog park, we're able to play and be free the way that we can without having that leash around our neck and being like tied down to whatever our owner is or whatever. We're not talking about breaking out and doing crimes, and we're not talking about that kind of unleashed.
Yeah,
but
no, the whole
being
unleashed,
respectful and really, because unleashed to us is just not feeling held back from being able to give as much as you can in terms of what you're here to do in this lifetime, like how to serve others and not feel like you're restricted from being able to be your true self. So it's not about going off on other people that don't think like you or whatever. It's about finding your own set of boundaries and self-respect and self-esteem so that you can stand on your own 2 feet and stand up for yourself and stand in your power and do what you were put here to do.
Yeah. And that's everything. That's absolutely everything. And we you were talking earlier and I didn't have a chance to throw it up, but you were talking about the gold shoes. And I love this new gold shoe that comes with the, I know we're not supposed to be poking fun, but come on. These are awesome.
Yeah.
Just for a moment, just let me gloat for just a moment. And then I'll stop. Because sometimes you just need to.
Sometimes you just got to laugh.
Just to have a little release. Just a little release. But speaking of leashes and the things that hold us down, and Trump being one of them and narcissism being just one of those things, we are coming up. June is Pride Month. And so we are definitely going to have some guests that are LGBTQIA plus members, of which, me. But we will be talking about some issues that LGBTQIA people deal with. And we certainly could have gone along with that, talking about Trump today as well, since he's such a huge proponent.
Yeah.
But so thank you so much for tuning in. Do you have anything else you want to throw out there, Jenny?
Well, I think just to kind of piggyback off what you're saying, that we'll certainly be talking about some in June. I think really one of the main goals of this podcast is to help make people more aware, because when you're not the one with the leash, you may not recognize that there even is a leash like that would be holding someone back. So a big part of our intention in doing these podcasts is to help people just become aware of the fact that there are some leashes out there that they may not even know exist. And it could be what's causing someone to act the way they are, or to do the things they're doing or whatever. So I think it's very important to, share this podcast so that people can see the different things that they just haven't been exposed to. Our goal is to find as many different kind of various people to interview that have different experiences and backgrounds, because you'll either connect with some part of what their story is, or you may not connect with every one of them, but you'll find somebody that you connect to and that you'll really start to understand, whether it's from your own experience or someone around you, you may go, oh, that sounds just like what my friend is going through or what they're dealing with or what they're struggling with. So that's really our goal. And, we're doing our best to try to bring, whether it's a guest interview or something that's happening, current topics and stuff like that in the news, really trying to tap into what's going on in the world and help people to see the leashes and how we can overcome them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. We'll be back again next week, 3 p.m. on Friday, Eastern Standard Time, or whatever it is, EDT, EST, Eastern Time.
ET phone home.
ET phone home, Eastern Time. We'll be back next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this and enjoy being with us, please let your friends know that they need to come and spend some time so that they can get Unleashed AF.
That's
So
right.
thank you so much. You have the music. You're going to get us out.
We'll see you all next week.
All right. Take care.
I'm done trying to live up to others' expectations. Family, society, class, race, sex, or religions. It's time to break free from the isms that make us feel like we're in prison. I'm ready to be unleashed as fuck. I'm ready to be unleashed as fuck. Tired of the madness, done with the sadness. Gonna break free and be unleashed. I'm done trying to live